And we're just setting up a wintertime mock scrape right now, and you know, I appreciate all the feedback that I get on these mock scrapes. It's something I came out with years ago, talked about it online, in videos, in print. I don't know if a lot of you guys know I have over 600 articles on my website, whitetailhabitatsolutions.com. So I used to do articles all the time, now we do more videos. But bottom line is, been doing this for a very long time, and I appreciate all the feedback about it. So I love scrapes. Why are we setting this up in the winter time? Well, of course, for one, we want inventory. And what we find when you set these mock scrapes up, we're not using any scent here. I'm not even peeing on the ground. I really don't care. This happens to be an old scrape site to begin with, but bottom line is we don't need to put any scent on this. And deer, we find, use these scrapes right away. So if they're in the right spot, they'll use them right away. And I'll tell you in a little bit what ingredients you need to make sure it's in the right spot. But first thing we're doing is inventory. I want to see what bucks are left. This is right after the season. In fact, we're filming on Tuesday and the 2nd, and the season ended on December 31st. So 2 days ago, we had the season. It's not there anymore. So now we're getting out in the woods. We drove back here in the side-by-side for the first time, all the way from the house to get back here today. We haven't been there since August. So inventory, I want to see what bucks are around. You know, that's one thing. We have lots of cameras out here, so we have a good idea on what bucks are around. It's pretty amazing. You get into a spot like this, and this is number 2, in an area we never walked to. We're about 200 yards back from a food plot. It's on a narrowing ridge top. It's in a saddle. I want to know what's moving around back here. So sure, we want inventory. I want to know what bucks are left after the season. That's very important. And that helps us even for next year. Just a little bit of tip. If we know the patterns of a 3-year-old or 4-year-old buck that we passed on this year, or that we didn't hunt because we knew he was too young for us in our area, maybe that's a 3-year-old you want to shoot next year, and he was a 2-year-old this year. But bottom line is, if we know that buck is still around, we can pattern him for the next year, and we already know his pattern. So that's pretty cool. In an area back like this, we don't actually know what bucks have been using this. We know what bucks are out at our cameras, out on the point here, where our food plot's at, or on the back of the point. We know down below, we have cameras about 200, 250 yards away. We have camera 200 yards over that way. But in this location, it's amazing how some of these older bucks will get pigeonholed into a certain area the older they get, and they don't leave that during the daylight. We might see them somewhere else. So I want to know what's back here. So for inventory is one thing, know what bucks are alive. And then for number 2, I want to see what patterns of a certain buck are back here. And then number 3, incredible stand location. I'm really not putting a mock scrape unless I have a stand location or a blind location next to it. I'm not putting mock scrapes throughout the woods. We found throughout the decades is more mock scrapes is not a good thing because it lowers the value of each one. No different than water holes. We're actually going to stick a water hole about where I'm sitting right here. So that'll be cool too, because there's a nice old cherry over here. I'll put a camera on next year. And that cherry will capture not only the mock scrape, but also the water hole right over here. So we'll get both at the same time, but this is the perfect stand location. Right up there, that white oak. We talk about that in another video for wintertime scouting a new stand location, but we'll have great access into this location. It's way away from, we don't have to come through the fields. We'll be able to have a little road coming back here on an old 2-track and actually fill this water hole before the season, let it go with one of our tubs. They're designed to last the entire season with holding water. So for inventory, knowing what individual buck is using this bedding area, and then of course it's because there's a stand location, we want to have a mock scrape in this location. So that camera right there, of course, if we're going to add a mock scrape, we're going to put a reveal on it. We have it on video and picture because we want to see what bucks are in here. We want to get the good footage of them coming in. We want to know what direction they're coming from, going to. If a doe comes through running, we'll get that video of that buck chasing her. So there's a lot of reasons to have your cameras on video. And again, you know, I go over this all the time. We have probably 60 mock scrapes videos. I started writing about this first long time ago. A lot of people copy this kind of stuff, which is really flattering. I appreciate you guys doing that out there. But this right here, we want this vine somewhere around waist level. We don't want it up here. This is not a traditional licking branch where a buck is going in with his head, working it like this, and there's rigidity back to the main trunk of a tree like a traditional scrape. Instead, it's hanging from right here. So what we find is they'll just take their head and they'll push it back and forth down here. You need to have this hanging down at face height for them. Also, we want every doe and fawn that comes through here to participate. So those fawns are a lot smaller. We want them to leave their preorbital gland scent here. The more scent that's left here, the more use it gets. This is an X of trails, obviously, where we wouldn't have a stand location in this spot to begin with. We want this area completely flat. Most scrapes, if they're just on even the slightest incline or a mound, they're not going to be used. So it's completely flat, about waist high. I want a vine or a branch. We could use a white oak branch. Those are awesome. Maybe you're up north and you have jack pine. That's great too. What I like about the vines, if you have them in your area, like look right behind you, there's a good vine right back here. We could have used this one, but I took this one down from another area. We could have used this one. And no, taking it down from another area with scent on it doesn't really help. It just happened to be the right size. And I saw it when you're driving by and I thought, oh, I'm gonna grab that. So we put it side by side, had a little string left over. So I want this flat ground, 3/4 inch to 1 inch in diameter. Doesn't matter if you're using a vine. I like the vines again because they don't break. They bend, they don't break. They're pretty hard to snap. And so what we find is, I was putting this up and Dylan goes, well, that's a three-year scrape, meaning that we probably average on a good stout vine like this 3 years. Popple, aspen, bucks love to rub and scrape them, but they only last about a year because the wood is so fragile and weak and soft. Not a bad branch to use up north. Not saying don't use them, but they can break pretty fast. And so when I use this, maybe a sturdy oak branch, hemlock in some locations, I'm thinking Pennsylvania where they rub and scrape under them all the time. If they rub and scrape that branch or vine, those branches, then go ahead and use it. But what I find is some of my most favorite long-lasting scrapes I see on client properties have been vines, which is what this originated from in the first place. Back in 1986, my first area of a bunch of scrapes, bunch of rubs, lots of deer sign, obvious buck area. Just my brother and I, he was 14 at the time, scouting on our own, hunting on our own, found an area like that, and someone from church, his name was Al Bigger, he said, well, this is a buck area. Those are scrapes. Didn't even really know what they were. No one in my family hunted. And I always think back to that tangle of vines and a knoll and an oak forest and north of Clarkston, Michigan, if you know where that is. Now it's all Deerwood subdivisions, but it used to be just random, larger parcels in that area. And bottom line is though, whatever you use, about waist high, location for a camera, location for a stand, flat surface right here. We clean it out. We want it to be clean. And another thing too, we want that buck to be able to spin all around this area and not hit a bunch of brush. So this brush over here is fine. It's 6-8 feet away. We broke it down, some of those branches. This tree is starting to push it for where it's at, but still a buck could spin around this and work it with his antlers. You don't want a giant trunk right next to it. If you follow those conditions, and this is an X of trails anyways, there's trails coming in from both sides up there, behind here. They run this top too. We'll have the water hole there. So a lot of reasons for a mock scrape to be in this location to begin with. That's how we set them in. That's what works for us. It's worked for many, many years. We only want one in a location. I want every doe, fawn, and buck that comes through here to leave their preorbital gland scent. I do not want a rub in this area. I'm not going to make a fake rub. We found, we did a study, rub versus scrapes. You can look it up from 2022, where we had a rubbing post-rub cedar, and then we had a mock scrape like this hanging off to the side. In a 60-day period from the end of September to the end of November, the rub was hit 21 times. There were shavings all over the place. It looked really cool. Just imagine the big bucks that hit it. We had video of them. The mock scrape was hit 210 times. So 10 times more the mock scrape was hit. Deer will go out of the way from a trail down there, 15, 20 yards, over here, 15, 20 yards, to come up and see what's been in this location. They'll go out of the way to do that. Rubs, typically the average rub in the woods is hit 1 time, 1.5 times per year, and that's it. So a rub doesn't have a lot of attraction power, but a mock scrape surely does. And it's almost a sin to have a stand location like that at 22 yards, 23 yards, and not have a mock scrape here. And think about it, even with young hunters, in a location like this, deer comes up to it, is focusing on this right here. What are they not focusing on? They're not only not focusing on you up in the tree stand, they're not focusing on the camera right there. The camera's at 6 feet high. They're not going to look up there anyways. A lot of reason to put a mock scrape here. They'll use it all year long. And so when we get out here and we're first scouting in December or in early January, right after the season ends, that's a perfect time. Everyone asks, when's a good time to hang a mock scrape? Well, anytime up until the season starts. If you're not leaving a lot of scent in that location, you could even do it during the season. But outside of the season, anytime. But this is one of my favorite times because we get that buck inventory. We get a snapshot of what's using this. Things will have to settle down over a week or two in this location, but we'll figure out what's here. And then also we have that perfect stand location to set up for next year. So hope you understand why we're setting these wintertime mock scrapes. I urge you to try it. Hey, and another reason, besides the ones I've listed and how to do it, how to put the scrape in here, make sure you follow those steps. If you put this too close, not going to be used. If you hang that down to the ground, it may or may not be used. One thing, we want this freely swinging right here. I don't want to connect that to the branch. Sometimes we have to run a line 12 feet high from one tree to another, hang it down in paracord. You can see this is only about 3.5 feet long, 3 feet. If I was hanging it from a branch up there, we'd have it 6 or 7 feet long. Longer is better when you're hanging it from somewhere up high. When it's short, we want this to look like an extension of a broken stick right here. But all those things being said, why we're doing it, how to do it, it's a whole lot of fun. Put a camera on it, see what comes in and hits it. We have people having bears, fishers, raccoons, all kinds of stuff hitting them. They're a lot of fun. Get out in the woods and enjoy it. Set up a wintertime mock scrape right now. I appreciate you guys watching the YouTube channel, but I don't know if everyone knows everything that we have to offer, whether it's on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, our website, or WHS Wildlife Blends, our seed company. Also Instagram you can check out. I'm very active on Instagram, putting strategies on there, photos of what we do every day. Much more active there than Facebook. But our seed, web classes, books, clients, articles. I have over 600 articles on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, everything whitetail strategy. Of course, we have hats on there, and then make sure to check us out on Instagram again. But lots of stuff to offer. We're always coming out with new things, and this isn't the end of it. We have more things coming soon. Make sure to check us out.